always loved galettes, and even though they're very rustic and actually easy to make, they've always looked so impressive to me. I don't know why, because if you think about it, it's kind of sloppy looking, but not, I don't know, there's just something very decadent and impressive looking about it to me. And like I said, they're usually very easy to make, unless you're like me and you decide that you need to also add a custard in the bottom of the galette, which wasn't actually that hard to make either. But it normally it's very quick. You just slice up fruit, throw it in the crust, and away you go. But I was very fixated on the idea of having a custard in this one, and I'm not sure why, but I think it's probably because the figs and the pears, it's like a very autumn flavor galette, I guess, and I just wanted something really cozy to go with that, so I made a vegan custard for it, which didn't actually take very long. It was more just finding the elements for the recipe. I found many recipes, but none that felt right to me, so I just grabbed a little bit from each one, and it actually turned out amazing. So good. I would actually more use it in the future for one of those fruit tarts, so like the pie crust with the custard and then the berries and stuff on top. It would be so perfect for that. So I'll definitely try that in the future.
To make your pastry, you need 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose unbleached flour and 1/3 cup of vegan butter, as well as about 2 or 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. And you're just going to cut that with a pastry cutter or 2 butter knives until it has a crumbly texture. You want all the butter to be in little tiny bits, and you need to have on hand a few tablespoons of cold water, and I mean ice cold. I literally put ice cubes in the water, and you add the water a little bit at a time until the dough is just moist enough that you can actually form a ball with it. It's really important that that water is cold though. That's the trick that I learned from my Nona, is that if your water is ice cold, your crust will be nice and flaky. I put the pastry dough into the fridge to cool and to stay cool while I prepare my other ingredients. You can use so many different fruits to make a galette. I'm using pear and fig for mine, but they're so delicious with apples or with peaches and plums, and all kinds of different fruits can be used, even berries if you wanted to. I was very skeptical about how the custard was going to turn out for this galette, and I had something very specific in mind. I looked through so many different recipes, and I kind of just grabbed different parts of different recipes and hoped for the best, and this turned out really well. So I took 1 1/2 cups of soft tofu and 1 1/4 cups of soy milk. I left some of the soy milk aside and added 1/2 cup of cornstarch to that because I didn't want the cornstarch to be lumpy, but I just made a mess out of it because I didn't use enough milk, and anyway, whatever. So basically I had this lumpy cornstarch mess that I probably just should have added to all of the ingredients in the first place, because that's what I end up doing. I added some granulated sugar to that, and about 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and a pinch of black salt to give it that kind of eggy, just a hint of that eggy taste that custard has, and some vanilla extract, and a pinch of turmeric just to give it some color. And I whisked that all together, but I actually just ended up putting it in the Vitamix just to give it a good blend and make sure that it was smooth because of the mess that I made with the cornstarch. Cornstarch is tricky like that. It lumps up easily depending on what you're mixing it into. So I put it all in the blender until it was really nice and smooth, and put it in a saucepan over medium heat and let it cook for about 10 or 15 minutes. I stirred it frequently, and then made sure that the custard was thick enough to coat the back of a spoon or a spatula, and then removed that from the stove and let it cool. And I stirred it occasionally while it was cooling as well, just to make sure that it didn't get too lumpy. So if you're not cooking the custard in a pie or in a galette like I'm about to, you would put it into the fridge for a few hours, like at least 4 hours, to really get thick before you serve it. So say you're making a fruit tart, like I mentioned earlier, you would pour the custard into your tart base, into the pie crust, and you would put that in the fridge for like a good 4 hours before you serve it. While the custard was cooling, I rolled out my pastry dough. One of the things I love about a galette is that you get to do this really rustically, so you don't have to worry about having uneven edges or anything like that. You really are just going to try and make a big circle. You could even do this in a square or a rectangle. It really doesn't matter, but as long as your dough is relatively even, that's the important part, just to make sure that it actually bakes evenly. So I put the custard in the middle of my dough. It was still hot. I should have waited. But I put a nice thick, I don't know what to call it, but I don't want to say pile, that sounds weird, but I poured custard in the middle and I spread it evenly out. And then I layered my sliced fruits on top of the custard. And then I pulled the edges and I folded them over so that there was an edge all around, a pretty wide edge all around the galette. And at the end, I sprinkled a bit of turbinado sugar on the top. I love that when it's baked, when it has the sugar, that crunchy sugar on the top of the crust. I baked that for about 45, 50 minutes. I think it was closer to 45 minutes. Keep an eye on it though. It'll definitely depend on how thick your crust was rolled out, how much custard you put in the center, and how thick you sliced your fruit. So definitely keep an eye on it and let it cool completely before you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. It means a tremendous amount to me. It truly does. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, thank you so much for being a part of this work that I am doing and helping to make this channel possible. And if you are someone who would like to work one-on-one with me, there is a booking link below for naturopathy and nutrition. I will be back next week, and in the meantime, take really good care of yourselves.